Καλησπέρα σας.
Good evening. Thank you very much to the organizers for honoring me with their invitation to be here for a second time at this extremely important forum and for giving me the opportunity to share with you a few thoughts about the investment perspectives in renewables. The contents of my presentation can be seen on this slide. Let me begin with a picture coming from LETAN, presenting the evolution in wind power, which is leading areas in Greece over time. The average installed capacity of the past 20 years is about 140 megawatts, and this is very little compared to the national or European targets. The best year was 2010-2011, an installed capacity of 313 megawatts. Last year, in 2018, we had 176 installed megawatts, less than in the previous years. However, the first half of 2019 makes us very optimistic, with over 200 megawatts installed. This year is expected to be the best ever. In order to see growth in RES, we need to have targets that will actually be implemented in practice rather than simply be on paper. We haven't reached our targets in 2020. There will be a deficit of 4,800 megawatts based on the National Plan on Energy and Climate by 2030. The targets in terms of the share of RES for 2030 in overall consumption should raise to 55%. As we've heard from the leadership of the ministry, by the end of the year, this target will have been reviewed. More ambitious targets will be set, and this is positive, very positive for us, although it's important to see that happening in practice. Decarbonization is always our objective by 2050 in order to cope with the impact of climate change, and based on the Paris Agreement, it's now termed climate crisis. Another relevant issue I should like to refer to has to do with long delays for payment to producers due to the reduction of a supplier's surcharge without any alternative mechanism in place, such as guarantees of origin and so on, as well as the fear and the concern over a possible new deficit for the RES special account pertaining to the reduction of the special levy on pollutant emissions, the ATMEAR. We need to be very careful in order to avoid negative consequences for the renewables. The second pillar has to do with a national spatial plan, which could do with some improvements. There's no need for a full review of such plan. Important decisions should be made not at a local or regional level, but rather at the central level. No special restrictions need to be instituted without unreasonable ones, just like there's no need to introduce additional exclusion zones for biodiversity protection. As for Natura areas, we need expert management plans, and we have a negative example of the former regional spatial planning for Crete, whereby the development of wind parks in Natura areas on Crete was prohibited. Actually, there was no possibility to have wind parks on Crete. Large investments are needed for the exploitation of the high wind potential of the Aegean, especially on the Cyclades Islands and Crete. Such large investments, as the Secretary General mentioned, will help us reach our energy and climate targets, and also facilitate economic growth and the development of the labor market. We need new interconnections along with the installation of clusters of wind farms. Another important issue has to do with licensing. There's still a lot of red tape which creates barriers for the development of projects characterized by delays, extreme delays, costs and risks. The environmental license, so you can have an idea, well, in this process up to 30 co-competent authorities are involved. From the moment the first license is granted until the construction actually begins, 10 years may go by, so we need to expedite the licensing procedure with special emphasis on the amendment of existing licenses or modification thereof. A top priority for us is Forestry Service as well as the Army and interconnection contracts. Co-competent authorities should express their opinion only on matters within their competence, within binding deadlines. All procedures should comply with the special spatial plan. I'm talking about archaeological services here. We need to get rid of subjectivity and have more objective or quantitative criteria implemented. Fees and charges should be eliminated, provided they no longer serve. I'm talking about the annual production license maintenance fee, especially concerning large wind park clusters. The developers are taxed due to the inefficiencies and the delays of governmental services. A new era has begun in wind energy. The first aspect has to do with competitive bidding. Special attention should be given to wind farms with independent interconnection or offshore wind parks. Our proposal is to introduce a premium that will cover the additional cost for submarine interconnection. As the Secretary General mentioned, the individual notification process should be introduced based on the guidelines for state aid of the European Commission for projects over 250 megawatts. In Greece, there's certain constraints, for instance, space availability. So projects that were applied for years earlier are faced with such a constraint, and they need to reduce the threshold for such projects to 150 megawatt per site. We have a transitional period with the participation of the target, or the participation in the day ahead. After the target model is implemented, investors will also be able to participate in the intraday and balancing markets. There are certain uncertainties concerning the forecasting of energy production, and this is why we need to establish RES aggregators. Aspect number 3, the new wind turbine technology. There's been great progress in the aerodynamic design and materials used for the equipment. As a result, cost of equipment is dropping, and the sizes of wind turbines become bigger, more than 3 megawatt per platform with a rotor diameter of about 120 meters. In conclusion, a couple of words about our group, the Copelouzos Group, which has been active in the Balkans since 1998, one of the most dynamic groups in the region. We're designing, developing, constructing, and operating large-scale projects, 250 megawatts of wind parks, at present 10 megawatts of hydro plants and 20 megawatts of PV plants. We also have a mature pipeline of projects over 50 megawatts with a special emphasis in the Aegean. Let me mention about our flagship project on Crete, which we aspire to see become the greenest island in the Mediterranean, as well as our wind park in Alexandroupolis, offshore wind park, the first realistic project of its kind due to low sea depth. Our group introduced for the first time in Greece in 2005 the concept of chain wind parks in areas with high wind potential but very limited interconnection possibilities. So our group has designed, developed, and issued the installation licenses for a major project consisting of 8 wind parks in Kaphireas on the island of Evia, which is to be connected via submarine cable to the Greek mainland grid with a licensed capacity of about 180 megawatts. The key shareholder is Enel Green Power. We will be in charge of the construction, and the project will soon become operational. Mr. Handavas will probably tell you more about this project. From the Enel perspective, we have also signed an MOU with the Egyptian Ministry for Electricity and Renewable Energies, aiming at the installation of 3,000 megawatt of wind farms in Egypt and transmission of the energy to Europe through Greece via an underwater interconnection. We're also cooperating with Enel Green Power and NEC, and recently China Energy. Thank you very much for your attention.